Hey guys, how's it going? Lunar Complex here, and this video is going to be about two things. One, I want to ask you guys a question, and I thought I'd do it at the beginning of the video, and instead of uploading just a wasted video for you guys to maybe just click, and instead of asking this question in a video, which is how I would reach you guys, I don't really know how else I would then kind of show you a little bit of how I think I'm finally going to do my cutscenes in my video game. And the question is, while I am remaking the demo for my game, Dante no Kodomo, if you guys would be interested in watching me live stream this on YouTube, I've wanted to do this for a while, but I can't think of any real schedule of things I would do while I live stream it. It would kind of be a spontaneous moment of, okay, I want to work on this specific part of my video game, and then maybe halfway through doing something, I'm like, wait a second, I have an idea for another part of my video game. I would just kind of quickly go to that, and it wouldn't be very planned out in any way, and that's kind of why I maybe don't want to do it. But if you guys would want to see that, I can definitely do that, and just let me know in the comments. The rest of this video is going to be about how I think I want to do my cutscenes in my video game, like a very good way I think that will make them work well and effective. And to kind of show you guys what I have so far is my cutscenes are going to be similar to those in games where your character stops and the screen kind of fades out, or maybe it doesn't, but then it shows a cinematic sequence, and then it either fades out or it doesn't, back into gameplay. So for example here, I will quickly go through this, and this is just a small little sequence I've been able to make. It's not completely done or anything like that. I should probably speed this up to make it go by a little faster. Here we go. Alright, so this is kind of the cutscene. This is the first cutscene. And as you can see, some things are going on, the screen's moving, there's some dialogue and everything like that. But then after the cutscene, it kind of fades away, and the background music turns into your typical, theme for a town or whatever like that. And now you can move the character, you can actually access the menu, do all this sorts of stuff, and everything your heart desires. But as soon as I step forward in these three squares, right above these three squares, another cutscene is going to happen. I haven't built the cutscene or anything, it's just kind of a cutscene placeholder. So when you do a cutscene, it'll be better if I explain this in the actual RPG Maker, but for right now I'm going to walk forward, and as you can see, my character disappeared, but strangely enough, a block has appeared right here. What that tells me is I've been able to figure out a way, it wasn't that hard to figure it out, but get a way to where cutscenes will happen sequentially. You just gotta make sure you delete any sort of way to reach back to the old cutscenes. But this helps in situations like, for example, in my old game, which I can go ahead and show you here, I just have to load it up. So in my old game, if I go to the database or event searcher, and I go to switches, well, this is kind of how I set up my old, these are basically my cutscene flags. Beat friend first battle, and then read the book of combat, scene in dojo over. And these are all questions, and if they're true, then the character or the player is basically that far into the game. And then Met King, that's like the last one. And I thought for a second, well, if these are all happening in sequential order, why don't I just make it a number and use a variable instead? And to do that, what I basically did is at the very beginning of the game, I have a kind of way to set values and everything. So right here, right there, variable number 17 is going to be considered the cutscene counter, and it's set to 0 at the beginning of the game, and this whole sequence right here actually puts the character into cutscene. And how I also set up my cutscenes to make everything a little bit more manageable is, unlike my older game, if we go to the very first village in my video game, we see that we have this here, that's a cutscene. And then what else is a cutscene? Actually, this is a cutscene as well. This displays the name of the kind of village you're in after the, I guess, intro to the video game. And I don't think there's any more. Oh wait, no, here's another cutscene thing that kind of plays. And so these are all actually in the game world, and I don't make a cutscene world. But what I've done is now I've made a cutscene world. So I took my forecast village here, the very beginning of it. I haven't fleshed it out completely yet. And I would copy it into a first cutscene, which happens here. So basically it keeps everything manageable, and I'm not accidentally running into any extra events or anything like that. And actually it helps because in the game world, I want some of these regions here, so like region 1, to actually block out some character movement. So she's going to move randomly, and I don't want her to move over there. Problem with that is, if I have a cutscene in here, and there are ways to go around this, but it's just more simpler if I copy paste this map and make a cutscene somewhere else, so that some events that I use in my cutscene don't mess with any of these region restrictions. And those region restrictions can be just found with a Yanfly plugin called Region Restrictions, and as you can see in here, I have Region 1 as an event restriction. So in this whole cutscene here, this is the cutscene controller right here. This is just an empty event. It runs as soon as the character gets loaded into this map. And so basically at the very end of this, I have some things to end the cutscene. I've made my own variables here called cutscene end and cutscene start, but that is actually more at the that's actually here at the very beginning. So cutscenes start on. What that does is it helps me put in default things that need to happen before and after a cutscene. So I didn't really think I'd get too much into this, but when cutscene start is played, we're going to stop player movement, disable access to the menu, and then have the player through on, just in case anything happens. We want to make sure, because I'm not even going to show the player in any cutscene. I'm going to show an event as the player, and I'm going to turn the player transparent so you don't even see the player. And then when cutscene ends, just throw on this common event where it allows back all that access and fun stuff. But basically, in this first cutscene that I've also labeled cutscene 1, which means that at the very end, I want to set that cutscene counter variable I was talking about to 1. And now what this does is, if I go to the actual game world, which is right here, we see these 3 little switches here, and I use this one as a test one because at the very beginning of our game we saw that only one of these was open, and when we stepped in here we saw that a second one got opened as well. These events that you see here are what the player will step into to activate the next cutscene, and so once the player does that, we're going to make sure that these cutscenes are only showable in the right order. So we have a condition here to run this event if variable cutscene counter is equal to 1. And this is actually if our variable is greater than or equal to 1, but we don't have to worry about that for now. The only problem here is that if we enter this cutscene here and it goes off, so we now will just display a window, or imagine we're going to an actual cutscene map over here, and at the end of that cutscene we're going to set cutscene counter to 2. What that will do is give the player access to the next cutscene event that they can then touch and enter in that cutscene. The problem here is, even though cutscene counter is now greater than or equal to 2, that also applies for the previous cutscene event, which 2 is still greater or equal to 1. Now, to get around this, we have to do something, which is set a self switch A to on, so that once we fill in all of these conditions, so if we have one here, if the player touches this, we can just enter here, control self switch A on, new event page, self switch A. So now when the player enters in this event cutscene and they come back out of the cutscene, this one will show and then this one will disappear. Now the reason why I have this down here is because, well, there isn't a single path to get from over here to over here. So I had to do some special tweaking where if player Y is 24, so if they're located in this square or these 3 squares basically, and if their x coordinate is greater than or equal to 55 or less than or equal to 57, so here, here, and here, go ahead and do all this sort of stuff. Now the only reason I can't just take this event here, copy it, and paste it here and there is because the player's touching this one, right? And sure, we can set self switch to A after and completely remove this event entirely. This event will still exist, and we cannot do anything about that as easily as we should be able to. So it would be great if, like, I can go in here and click set move route to our other event. Let's just imagine the event next to this is like 44, and then we can like set its own self switch to something, but we cannot do that. So instead of making these 3 events, we have to make a single event so that it turns itself off accordingly, and absolutely we don't have to worry about any other event. There's no way the player can re-access this first cutscene, and it increments and allows the player to access the next cutscene after. And I just had these 2 here to kind of show that when the player goes into the second cutscene here, it allows the player to actually walk into the next one. And I could show it much easier again. If I delete this and then walk into here, it should disappear, and then this one should show up. So if I go ahead and test it again. Alright, so if I walk up here, what should happen is this black box up here should disappear completely, and then allow the next cutscene trigger to appear for the player to touch. So set to 2, and then there we go. So now I can walk in here, and the cutscene's gone. I can never access it. I can leave, I can come back. Its event here is still set to A, and in A there's nothing that happens. So if we decide to go into cutscene trigger 2, we see that it's now set to 3, and it actually didn't disappear, and the reason is because we didn't set the self switch to anything. So if we just add a self switch here, just like we did in this event, it will disappear and then give player the access to the next cutscene. And that's how I think I want to make my cutscenes, because I want the player to eventually... I actually probably shouldn't have gotten rid of that one thing, but that's fine. There we go, I brought it back. So basically I'm going to use this event here and in place of these 3 to where when the player walks here, or here, what it's going to do is transport them to this next map here, which will have the second cutscene in it, which will be some dialogue with the female character, and then it will fade out and place the player back on this gameplay world, thus triggering this second event trigger, I don't know, wherever I want to put it, and then the player cannot get back to that previous cutscene ever again. So I hope that kind of made sense to you guys. I didn't want to upload just completely nothing. I wanted to actually help you guys with anything if you needed it, and I think this is a good way to do cutscenes. The only real issue is I wish that maybe RPG Maker MV 1.3.4 can actually include a drop-down menu of different operators here, like greater than or equal is our only one. Why is that? I don't understand why we can't do more with that. And I'm sure, you know, there's a script out there or something like that, but it's just a drop-down. Like, you just add values there. It would not be that hard to do. Oh, for a little bonus, I can show you guys how I transfer maps, which I think I've figured out a very interesting way to do. When the player is getting close to something, like the exit of a map you're currently loaded in my quick tips, my 5 quick tips video, I basically went off on a kind of rant about how when you make map transitions, you should really consider people maybe playing this on a touchscreen or things like that. And just imagine that these black boxes, once you've finalized your game, you can just make them transparent, and you don't have to go through each one of them. You just make the file they're taking that image from and transparent that. Basically what happens is when the player walks into here, that happens. And I think that's a pretty good transition. I like it, and of course I would make these transparent as well toward the end, but these right here are for my... Notice how it says bridge event. They're basically to help, they operate the bridge events. And if we go down here, we have another area, and you move smoothly into it. And if we keep going over here, I can't remember where the thing is, but we have this music based on if we're on the outside of the island and we hear a little water in the background, a little crashing of waves of sort. If we go over this bridge and we go in the middle of the forest, this music will fade and play some actual foresty music. And if we stay inside the middle of the island, it's a 3x5 island if you are curious, we have you know, different music playing. And then if we go back to the town, it changes to that town music, and you don't hear crashing waves. Even though the beach is over here, I can make an event here to just change between a sound playing in the background to not playing in the background. But, you know, I'm just kind of trying to get this, not everything's going to be completely fleshed out and perfect the first time. But I do like my saves to look like that. I do like that kind of theme and stuff. I actually made it so that when you click this, it changed everything to snow. It was really cool. I should actually keep that in here or something to at least show you guys. But yeah, so yeah guys, hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it wasn't a complete waste of your time. Like I said before, I really just didn't want to upload something saying, would you guys like to watch me live stream making my game? But I do want to know if you guys would enjoy that. I really don't want this channel to be something that turns out not what people subscribe to want it to be. I don't know. I'm just asking a question, and I have a very good, at least I think it's a very good tutorial-ish kind of video on how I seem to want to do my cutscenes. I may change it, I may not, but I think this is a pretty good way. It does save the hassle of having to have, you know, all of these switches here, and instead of all of that, I just have this one variable called cutscene counter. And I want to say at the very end of the game, you could easily just set this back to 0 and maybe play the whole game again. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be a little bit of things you have to worry about, but you don't have to switch back off like 1,000 cutscene flags. You just switch this 1 to 0. That may be interesting, like a game plus kind of thing, but I think there's an actual script for that, which is ridiculous. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and please leave a comment below if you would actually want to see some live streaming of me working on this video game. And there's going to be no schedule with it. There's just going to be what I feel like doing at the time, and it could change right in the middle of me working on something. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys have a fantastic day. And yeah, thanks for watching.